And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, March 4th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by DK. We're brought to you by Stokastic and OddsShopper. Sign up for either one. Sign up for both, honestly. That'll be way better for you. Link in the description. 7-game slate on DraftKings, 9-game slate on FanDuel. Couple ugly ones tonight. Can't be even remotely close to as crazy as yesterday was. So let's hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. DK, how did yesterday go for you?
Not well with all the injuries. Maxey injured, Jaren Jackson injured. So it was pretty tilting because I thought that slate had a lot of edge with the Rockets news. So that was pretty tilting. But yeah, so it did not go well for me at all.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was just an absolutely, truly ridiculous day. Probably one of the better, like, positive EV days for late swappers that we've had in a long time. Just the idea of being able to get to Cam Whitmore yesterday, who ended up playing 40 minutes. The late swaps were crazy. Let's see if we have any good late swaps for today. I don't know if that's going to be the case. We've got some ugly games. I'm ready to break it down if you are, because we've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it's going to be a hectic hour from like 6 p.m. Central to 7 p.m. because we got a lot of Q tags. So yeah, I'm ready to do it whenever.
We really do. There's so much. It's so much. So here we go. First game up, Houston Rockets. They were the bells of the ball yesterday in late swap. Now they are the first team to talk about today. 4-point underdogs in Indianapolis taking on the Pacers. No Fred VanVleet for this one, but everybody else is just available. We're getting about 10% ownership to Tari Eason, about 15% to Jalen Green, and essentially nothing else to the rest of Houston, even in what is a pretty good matchup. Are you seeing this differently than the public? Do you want to get to anything else here for Houston? What stands out to you?
Yeah, I think Şengün's going kind of overlooked here. So on the season, Alfred Şengün, 1.37 fantasy point per minute player. Right now, only projected for about 5% ownership, but the minutes have been really solid for him recently. 37 there against the Kings, 35 against Milwaukee, 35 against Utah, 36 against Minnesota. So he's pretty consistently playing mid-30s minutes here. Don't mind the spot. Price point's not amazing, but like the upside there on Şengün. So I kind of like him as a contrarian option. Tari Eason getting around 10% ownership. Keep an eye on the starting lineup. It's either going to be him or Jabari Smith. We obviously know the other starters, Jalen Green, Şengün, Brooks, and Thompson. Whoever starts between those two, I think I would prefer. I'm kind of lean that'll be Eason, but we'll see. So Eason 5.4, Jabari Smith 5.6K. And then the guy getting the most love right now is Jalen Green, a little over 10% ownership, 7.2K. Kind of just indifferent on him. In a competitive game, you should expect mid-30s minutes. A bit more ball handling for Green and a guy like Amen Thompson with VanVleet out. Amen Thompson himself at 8,500, I think is just a little bit too much on this slate. Yeah. Dylan Brooks at 4,700, just kind of like a dart throw value option. And then, yeah, like can't get to Whitmore. Obviously, he had a huge game last game, but he's going to go back to barely playing in this one. So it might even DNP. So that's really it for Houston. Again, I think Şengün, interesting tournament option. And then again, keep an eye on the starting lineup there, whether it be Eason or Jabari Smith.
Yeah, I'm with you there on Şengün as a wild card. 9,100 is a big price tag. Like, it's clearly climbing a little bit for those minutes, but I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him hang a big number. Does rank as the third best option here for Houston behind the two guys that are getting some ownership. I lean Eason over Green as a fantasy play. I don't really see them as all that different. Similar boom ratings in the boom bust tool. Tari Eason slightly more optimal. I think that's just because of the $200 cheaper price tag, but I think 10 to 15% ownership on Eason and Jalen Green makes some sense. And potentially Jabari Smith looking interesting. He's a guy that I always want to get to and then never do. And then he plays like shit for 4 games, and then he has 60 fantasy points on some like one-off day. He spikes ceiling games more than I can picture anybody else doing it. It'll be like 30, 30, 30, 70. And it's like, well, where did that come from today?
On Jabari Smith?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get those like random pop-off games out of nowhere.
And it's like he'll play like 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes. And it's like, oh, Jabari Smith played 39 minutes today and absolutely nuked. It happened. If I feel like it happens constantly. What are some of his highest totals this year? He dropped like 51 in November, a couple 40s. This is for a guy that's usually sitting in like the mid fives. And then it's just always like 25, 25, 25 spike game because he hits 6 threes. Love him. I'm a big Jabari Smith guy. I'm cheering for him. We'll see where that gets me. We'll probably get shipped out of Houston in no time. Let's look at the Pacers side because if you're not a big fan of the Rockets, you're probably a bigger fan of the Pacers because these guys are getting a pretty good chunk of ownership. Currently 88%, basically tied for the second most owned team behind Cleveland. And we're going to be without Benedict Mathurin again today, or at least allegedly. He's doubtful. In theory, that could change, but let's just assume he's out again. Him being out is creating 15% ownership to Pascal Siakam, 15% ownership to Miles Turner, 15% ownership to Aaron Nesmith, 30 to Andrew Nembhard, and essentially nothing to Tyrese Halliburton. So start it wherever you want. What do you like the most from the Pacers?
I think those two value plays are probably the two preferred options here with Nembhard and with Naismith. So with Mathurin out the last two games, the minutes on those two have been very solid. Naismith, 35 minutes there against Miami, 29 against Chicago. And then Nembhard, back-to-back 37-minute games is really good to see. So 4,800 there for Nembhard and 4,500 for Naismith. I think both stand out as pretty solid options for value. So I like them both. I don't know if Nembhard should be like 2x the ownership of Naismith. I think both are similar value options. Both have nice eligibility as well. So those two I think are the easiest to get to for the Pacers. The other two guys getting ownership with Siakam at 7,300 and Miles Turner at 6,400. Those guys are just kind of like last piece in guys for me. Turner only center eligible. Obviously, there's relatively high opportunity costs. Should play around 30 minutes with upside of a little bit more if he's playing well. Played 35 there against Miami. Pascal Siakam is someone that I seem to like never get to, but he just consistently playing like 30 to 32 minutes a night. Been pretty consistently going for like 35 fantasy points. So again, not really much more to add there. Halliburton not getting much love, 8,600. Kind of understand it. Like I'm not really on Halliburton in this spot against Houston. He was someone that was playing. The minutes were very solid on him when McConnell was out for a couple games, and the ball handling role was a lot better. McConnell back, I think the ceiling kind of goes down a bit there on Halliburton. Yeah, not much else here. I'm not going to mess with like Obi Toppin, or I don't think I'm going to get to McConnell either. So yeah, it's Nembhard and Naismith. I think are your top options here for Indiana.
I have 50% of Andrew Nembhard right now. He is ranked 4th coming out of the Stokastic Boom Bust tool. I have 35% of Aaron Nesmith. So I'm close to 2xing both of those dudes. So instead of just picking one of them, I'm just apparently saying I'll take both. I also got to 25% of your boy Pascal Siakam, 7,300 power forward only. He's basically the same guy every day. I feel like his price never moves. I feel like his performance never changes.
Right.
He's like the opposite of Jabari Smith to me in that I think Pascal Siakam, like we have him projected for 38.3 today. I feel like he just gets 38.3 every single day that he plays, no matter what. Like if he's light on scoring, he's like, oh shit, I got to make that up with a couple extra steals or blocks today. If he scores like 30 real points, he'll have like 1 rebound and 1 assist. I can't, that dude just never gets there for me, but he's in a quarter of my lineup. So I hope today is the day that he gets there. I didn't get any Tyrese Halliburton though. I'm with you. Not that he doesn't look fine, but like I think that's kind of the problem. He's just fine. There's a lot better options today, whether we're talking about Dame, Giannis, if we're talking about like just general pay-ups. This is going to be a weird question because they're not even the same position. Alperen Şengün or Tyrese Halliburton?
Şengün.
Okay. Same exact ownership, similar-ish price tag range. So just wanted to compare them quickly. I do see on OddsShopper in the Portfolio EV tool right now, Amin Thompson under 15.5 points on DraftKings. 3 OddsShopper rating, 12% historical ROI. We seem to like those points props on DraftKings. So if you want to take that, guys, that could be the first play of all the plays that we recommend for today. Shout out to Pat Spencer of the Warriors, who has signed a standard contract. Today is the final day to lock people down into 2 ways. So, Pat Spencer becomes a regular dude on the Warriors, and I'm going to assume either it's happening right now or we're going to get some sort of message that the Golden State Warriors are signing somebody else to a 2-way. That should be happening imminently. That will be the final time that we mention Pat Spencer on this show until the Warriors decide to shut down a bunch of people because he will not be participating much in the
He's
rest
got
of
to
the
be the
Golden State
only
Warriors season.
player I feel like in NBA history to wear the number 61. Like, I was like,
Ooh,
oh,
what
I know he has like a really weird number. Just looked it up. Yeah, he's number 61. I can't think of another player that's been 61 before.
do you want to know if there are any others?
But there probably have been, but like I feel like there haven't been. Like I
There
can't
have been
recall any.
3 people that have worn the
Okay.
number 61 in an NBA game. Pat Spencer did it this year and last year. This is the weirdest part of all of this shit. Because one, that's like a non-traditional basketball jersey number, especially
Mhm.
for olden days when they generally kept everybody 1 through 5s or 0 through 5s. Bevo Nordman of the 1962 Cincinnati Royals and David Piontek of the 1963 Cincinnati Royals. So two random morons from the Cincinnati Royals wore this number in back-to-back years. There's only one way that happened, and I think it's pretty obvious. The Cincinnati Royals were clearly not getting new jerseys each year. Bevo Nordman played in that jersey in 1962, and absolutely Dave Piontek got that number
Got it.
61 jersey the next year. There's no way those dudes picked it the same way. Unless Bevo Nordman died that year and he took it over for him, no shot.
That's hilarious.
Bob Nordman, I guess, but I guess he went by Bevo. That's he was a third round draft pick, which just for anybody that's curious, there are not third round. There's no more third rounds any longer. He did not play a lot of basketball. 1,600 total minutes. It's probably because he wore 61.
That's
So yeah,
probably
there you
right.
go. 3 people, Pat Spencer and 2 idiots in the 60s. The more you know. It's a
It's a fun
learning
fact for
experience
the
on the
day.
deeper dive. Yeah. I don't, those 2 names I've never heard of, obviously. I guess Pat Spencer fits. That's going to be
Mhm.
3 people no one's ever heard of wearing the number 61. Well, if that was unappealing for you guys to hear, buckle up because now we've got the Toronto Raptors 7.5 point dogs in Orlando, 207.5 total. Lowest total on the slate by 12 points. Lowest pace game on the slate. Second lowest owned game. There's not a lot here. We're going to start on the Toronto side. Ochai Agbaji is out. Grady Dick is out. Right knee hyperextension. That's really weird. Hyperextension's not a, it doesn't matter. It's not an injury. That's just a mechanism. Something else is wrong. Doesn't matter. 5% ownership ish to RJ Barrett. 5% ownership ish to Jacoby Walter, who I think we're assuming is going to be starting today in Grady Dick's spot. Is there anything here you want to get to for Toronto? Massive pace down spot. Orlando's defense is pretty good. These guys don't look great.
No, yeah, really, really tough matchup. Keep an eye on the starting lineup. I think if it's Walter that starts, he's like a reasonable value there at 3.7K, shooting guard, small forward, eligible. But again, really not a good point per minute player. Again, and especially if he's playing alongside the starters. So like he's in play, but not someone to go on my way to get to. I do think it's interesting that he's coming in closer on like 10%. Like Jamal Shed is like completely unowned, especially if this game gets out of hand. I think Shed could be someone that you could like possibly look to as a dart throw in tournaments there at 3,600. As far as like the main guys go, though, like Jakob Poeltl at 6K, we haven't really seen the big minutes for him yet. He's averaging like mid 20s minutes since he's come back. 24 there against the Pacers, 22 against Chicago, 26 against Orlando. Yeah, like Scotty Barnes, the price has come down, but again, it's a really bad matchup. Barrett and Quickly both seem priced right. So not a ton else to add here. Mobo's price is too high for me to get to him. I do think you'll probably see some Boucher minutes. We know he's a decent point per minute player, but again, not super confident in him playing a lot. So yeah, pretty unappealing team. Definitely, I would say one of the least appealing teams on the slate.
Yeah, RJ Barrett got to 9% optimal in our boom bust tool, 21% chance of 46 fantasy points. He ranks 35th on the day. There's just, if there are 34 guys ahead of you, it means your team doesn't look that great today. That's a tough spot to start. So I don't really have anything here for Toronto. We don't have any Q tags that could potentially make this look a little bit better. As always, if you want to play Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, like, sure, you can click those names. They're real NBA players, or Quickly as well. I don't know why I missed him, but like none of them look good. They're pivots at best because the matchup sucks. Orlando's defense still solid, even without Suggs. It has regressed a bit, but it's not like it's bad. They still have their center talent. We do have some ownership on the Orlando side, though. but it's basically only to the two people you would want to roster for the Magic. It's 20% ownership to Paolo, 20% ownership coming into Franz, 5% to Wendell Carter Jr., 5% to a questionable Cole Anthony. Paolo and Franz are essentially the same price. One's a small forward, one's a power forward. They project basically identically in Stokastic projections. 42.7 to Franz, 43.3 to Paolo. Do you prefer one over the other?
I don't. These are usually two guys that, if one's getting a little bit more ownership than the other, I would usually prefer like the lower end option, assuming they're like at a similar price. But yeah, basically they're at the same price, getting the same ownership. So this one for me is just a complete coin flip. I don't have a lean with those two. Both look pretty good though. 8,200 for Paulo, 8,100 for Franz. They're playing big minutes in competitive games. Decent spot here against Toronto. So I understand why those two are getting around 20% ownership. The Cole Anthony news is going to be somewhat important here. He's 5K. Yeah. Late addition to the injury report. Slightly lean that he doesn't play. If he misses, I would say most likely it would be Anthony Black that would pick up the start. But Corey Joseph got dusted off last game, and he actually closed last game. So, like, there could be an outside chance that maybe they throw him in the starting lineup. You never know. Again, I would lean that would be Black if Cole Anthony sits. But Orlando's done weirder stuff. Wendell Carter Jr. coming in around 3% at 5,500, I think is a fine last guy in option. They've been running a little bit more offense through him. The potential assists have been solid. In competitive games, he's pushing for like high 20s minutes. He played 32 there against Toronto, so I think he's like a reasonable play. I'm not going to really get to much else here. The minutes haven't been great, and Goga's the backup 5. Jonathan Isaac, he's really cheap, but still not super confident in the minutes. Orlando just runs a really deep rotation, so it's Paulo and Franz as your clear top options. And for me, I don't really have a take on which one I prefer.
I'm with you. They look almost identical. I think it's just going to come down to what the rest of your lineup looks like, whether you're getting the small forward or the power forward here. If Anthony Black happens to start in Cole Anthony's place, we have him as a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy. If you give him 28 minutes, just kind of generically off the top of my head, that ends up getting him to 5.3x his salary. He'd probably end up in like the 15 to 20% range of ownership, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Good enough value at point guard, 4,200. Other than the fact that you're just locking it in at 7 o'clock, he'll look reasonable if he's the starter. If it's Corey Joseph, you're going to need to project a lot more than 28 minutes to feel good about it because he stinks.
Yes.
Anything else here?
No, I think that's it.
Well, I got one for you. Under 5.5 rebounds. 18 OddsShopper rating on FanDuel right now for Goga Bitadze. Plus 102. 6% historical ROI. That is a massive OddsShopper rating. If you guys are betting on FanDuel, 7.7% expected EV on Goga Bitadze right now. Let me click refresh just to make sure it didn't go anywhere. So far, it hasn't. That's a priority play coming out of Portfolio EV, as is under 1.5 threes plus 122 on Franz Wagner. Now, it's a 7 OddsShopper rating, 5% EV, slightly negative historical ROI, so your mileage may vary on that one, but I would be racing to FanDuel to get that Goga Bitadze line right now. Now, if I race to FanDuel to put that in while I'm on the show, you bet your sweet ass Wendell Carter Jr. is playing 16 minutes tonight and Goga's playing the other 30 right, because that's the only way that one's going to be bad. All right, schedule, rest of the day. You may have heard this before if you've been watching the deeper dive, but after this show, 6 o'clock, Greg, Eric, live before lock, they will break down all of the news that comes out from 6 to 7, particularly at 6:30 when we start getting all the Houston, Indy, Toronto, and Orlando news, all their starting lineups. They'll be breaking down your questions. They'll be working through Portfolio EV. They're going to do that for an hour. Then Greg and I will show up on Playback. That's playback.tv/Stokastic. Thank you guys for being there yesterday. It's the most people we've ever had. We had 12 or 1,300 people on Playback to start yesterday because we had a lot of news. And people want to go to Playback for the news, and that's where you should be. We're going to be watching games, breaking down ownership, late swaps, bets. Greg and I will be there for an hour watching games. If you have League Pass, you could link your account. If you don't, we have 20 VIP passes that we can hand out. And get ready. Spoiler alert, you're going to want to be there. We might have something to give away. So if you're normally on the fence about tuning in on Playback, today's not the day. Got something to win. This one's fun. Milwaukee Bucks, 6-point favorites in Atlanta, 242.5 total. I have this tied with Cleveland and Chicago for the highest total. I also have it tied with Cleveland and Chicago, 102.0 pace. That's pretty tough to do. We are getting ownership to Milwaukee. It's basically the same situation as Orlando, only Milwaukee gets to face the Atlanta Hawks, who are very fast and not very good defensively. Dame's 15% owned at 9K. Giannis is 27% owned at 11K, power forward center eligible. And I'm just going to put this out there right now. He is really easy to get to for me. He is in 80% of my lineups. What do you want to do with the Greek Freak?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Love Giannis. I think he's your top spend up on the slate. Now, since returning from the break, they kind of eased him back into it minutes wise. Played 32 against Miami, 32 against Houston, 33 against Denver, 32 against Dallas. I think you could see a uptick in minutes here soon. Maybe it's today. But yeah, Giannis, great point per minute player, great matchup too. 1.68 on the season. So yeah, he looks amazing. 11K reasonable price point. And yeah, would not be surprised in a competitive game if he pushes for 35 minutes in this one. So yeah, Giannis looks amazing. Dame at 9K coming in, about half the ownership of Giannis. Still stands out as a pretty good point per dollar option on the season. Dame 1.25 fantasy point per minute player. I would give the edge to Giannis, even though Giannis is getting more ownership. But obviously, I'm never going to say no to Dame in a matchup against Atlanta. He still looks good. Keep an eye on the Kuzma news. That could definitely open up some stuff. So last night, it was kind of trending towards he wasn't going to play. Doc Rivers said he's doubtful. Now he got upgraded to questionable. Kind of leads me to believe that he will play. If he does play, I think I'm probably going to stay away from the Bucks value guys like, Gary Trent, Taurean Prince, AJ Green, guys like that. If Kuzma gets ruled out of a lot more confidence in the minutes for those guys, and they would be, firmly in play for me. Those three: Trent, Prince, AJ Green, maybe even KPJ. So that actually is something that's pretty important to keep an eye on there with the status of Kyle Kuzma. Kuzma himself, assuming he's good to go and plays 6,300, coming in around 10%. That's fine. Don't worry, I have any super strong takes on him. But yeah, not much else to add here for Milwaukee. The minutes have been solid in Brook Lopez. He's 5,800, but again, I don't think I'm going to be getting to him in this slate. So Giannis, Dame, both look great. Giannis especially. And then keep an eye on the Kuzma news. Could open up a little bit of value if he gets ruled out.
Yeah, with Kuzma out this morning, AJ Green was looking a lot better, 3,500, point guard, shooting guard eligible. He'd been playing 30 minutes a game about a week and a half ago, right after Portis went down. Gary Trent was looking like a much better value. Taurean Prince became a guy that you could click on if you wanted to. It's rarely fun. Even Dame and Giannis looked better with no Kyle Kuzma around. Dame in particular. I'm happy to get to either one of those guys. We got Giannis number one with a bullet. That ceiling is just massive. There's no Shea, there's no Jokic, there's no Wemby, like all the other major point per minute dudes. There's no Luka on the DraftKings slate. So it's just Giannis as the pay up. To me, he looks odd. It's sort of like SGA yesterday. He just looks siloed there as a very easy guy to want to get to. But yeah, that Kuzma news will be pretty big because that will free up some stuff for Milwaukee. It'll be interesting to see if he gets ruled out because, yeah, like you said, he was doubtful to start the day, questionable now. Usually those sorts of upgrades result in that guy playing. We'll see if that ends up being the case. I wouldn't want to touch these two on Portfolio EV right now just because of that Kuzma news. 16 OddsShopper rating under 1.5 threes for AJ Green is plus 150. And then under 11.5 PRA for AJ Green is a 6 OddsShopper rating on Onyx odds. I wouldn't recommend those just because if Kuzma's out, AJ Green's getting 6 or 7 more minutes, and those are going to look like really bad bets if you get them. If he's in, they're great, but you got to take that into account. Those ratings might not be as good as they seem. So oddly enough, Atlanta getting more ownership than Milwaukee in this spot, in the lesser side of this spot. 20% ownership to George Niang, 20% ownership to Onyeka Okongwu, 15 more for Karis LeVert, and then 10 for Risa Shea and Dyson Daniels. This feels a lot like the Pacers because all of those guys are getting the ownership, and the guy that's not is Trae Young. What do you do with Atlanta here?
Yeah, so we'll start with Okongwu at 6,200. I think he stands out as one of the best center plays right now on the slate. Even with Capella back, it's just the minutes uptick for him, right? He played 32 against Miami, 35 against OKC, 32 against Memphis. I think he looks really good here. I think he's going to play over 30 minutes, assuming he avoids foul trouble. So Yeah, I think Okongwu looks really good there, even at 20% ownership. A couple of value plays getting some love here with Niang and Levert. Niang missed last game, but he should be back, or he is back. I don't think he starts. I think they're probably going to start like one of like Barlow or Mo Gay just for like defensive purposes on Giannis. But Niang's a guy that definitely has 25 to maybe even 30-minute upside if he's playing well off the bench. So 4,200, I think he stands out as a pretty good value play. Levert has been playing good minutes as well. Since returning from break for the Hawks, he is second on the team in usage behind Trae Young. And he's got shooting guard, small forward eligibility. Over the last, 4 games, averaging about 30 minutes per game. So, yeah, I think Levert stands out as another pretty solid option there, I guess, in the mid-range. Dyson Daniels at 7K coming in around 10%. Another guy I feel like I never get to, but obviously the primary defender should play big minutes, assuming no foul trouble. So I'm not going to say no there. Ricochet at 4.8K. I don't think his minutes, I don't think are as secure with Niang back. Niang's a guy that could eat into the minutes there for Ricochet. Terrence Mann at 4.1K. Actually started the second half last game over Dominic Barlow, but I think that was because Jaren Jackson Jr. Got ruled out. And then the last guy to mention here is Trae Young at 10K. Basically getting no ownership right now. I don't love the price point on Trae, but I do think he is viable at that ownership. Since returning from break, about a 30% usage rate and 40% assist percentage there for Trae. Didn't shoot the best last game, 5 of 17. Hasn't really shot the best recently, but we saw the ceiling game there against Detroit in 30 minutes, 63 fancy points. So I do have a little bit of interest in him as a contrarian spend up. And then, yeah, that's really it. Again, the minutes have not been great on Capella. I know the price is cheap, but yeah, I would just rather pay a couple of thousand more for Okongwu, who the role has been very solid for.
Love Okongwu today. He's in 45% of my stuff. Glad you shouted him out first. Ranks third coming out of the boom bust tool. He's like $1,000 underpriced right now for the role that he has. It's not even close to correct. And just give me him all day, every day if he's going to keep playing easily 30 plus every time out. Like Clint Capella is just an afterthought at this point. I'm over on Niang, 4,200, just in a completely different role now with the Hawks compared to where he was for the Cavs. A lot more minutes to go around. They just look, if you're going to be playing Dominic Barlow or Mo Gay 12 minutes to start, like they're obviously going to be leaning on everybody else. And by all accounts, Niang is one of those guys. Same for Levert. Happy to get there. He's in 10% of my lineups. Dyson Daniels is in 10% of my lineups. The one guy I didn't get is the best player on the team in Trae Young. It's so weird. No different than Halliburton right now. So point guard's just loaded. You got a 10K Trae Young. You've got Dame looking out there in the opposite side of this game. We've already talked about Tyrese Halliburton. We're only through 3 games, and we've named like 3 pretty high-level point guards, 2 of which are getting 0 ownership. So interesting pivots if you want to try to get to one or both of those guys. Trae Young under 40.5 PRA out there on BetMGM with a 4 OddsShopper rating. So maybe you could just bet against him in its entirety. Don't get him in DFS. Do bet against him in PRA. Terrence Mann, under 0.5 threes, plus 165, 3 OddsShopper rating. I'll take that. I mean, Terrence Mann, not exactly a incredible offensive player. So do it. Take him. We're going to build out we're probably going to get at 10 to 15 really good bets coming out of OddsShopper today. Nothing better than watching this show, filling out your betting ticket if you can. This is going to be a fun one. Kidding. Least owned game on the slate. Golden State Warriors, 5.5-point dogs in New York, 226 total. We have 15% ownership coming into Golden State. That's the lowest of anybody. And we have 30% coming into the Knicks. That is the third lowest total of anybody. Not a lot coming in here, but that may change. Steph Curry, questionable. Karl Anthony Towns, questionable. Like I said, there's no ownership coming into either side. So let's go to Golden State. If Steph is in, does anything stand out to you from the Warriors?
No. I don't think I would be getting to anything here from Golden State if Steph is in. If Steph is out, that's where things change. Now, before the game yesterday, Steve Kerr said there are no plans to rest any veterans, but obviously I think it's an ankle, I believe, for Steph. I think that happened yesterday. Ankle soreness. I don't have a super strong lean right now, and if he plays or not, I think it's close to 50-50. But if he gets ruled out, things would change a ton here. I think you would get a lot more ball handling for Podziemski, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, more usage for Jimmy Butler. And then you're just going to feel a lot better about the minutes for guys like, Moses Moody, Buddy Hield. And then starting lineup would be interesting. I think it would depend on if Cat plays in the opposite side. Like, would Golden State try to go a bit bigger? Maybe throw Quentin Post in there if Cat plays. If not, they could, stick with the small ball lineup. So yeah, the Steph news is big here, and we may or may not get this news before locks the 6:30 Central game instead of 6. So again, I don't have a super strong lean right now on if he's going to play.
His quote last night after the game during the press conference was, "I think I'm going to play, but if my ankle says I shouldn't play, then I won't."
It's always tricky with ankle injuries because I feel like,
especially him.
Right. Like right after the game, it's not as bad, but usually like the next day is when it gets worse. So
when you take your shoe off and it starts swelling up and everything. Yeah. I mean, look, his ankles are like the scariest ankles of anybody's ankles in the league. It's the reason that the Golden State Warriors were ever able to go on their run. If he didn't have bad ankles to start, he wouldn't have signed a shitty contract that allowed them to bring in Kevin Durant long-term. So they're worried about his ankles always. I don't think Steph cares about playing in the Garden, no matter what everybody else thinks. I've seen that all day today. I'm sure he does care, but I think he's done it before. I think he'll do it again.
He's played a few games
if he's out
in the Garden.
We're going to like some stuff here. I don't know who they would start. Like if Cat's in, I could see them starting Looney over Post if you just want to get a little bit more heft. Make sure, because you don't care as much if Looney is matching up for the 12 minutes against Mitchell Robinson. Like maybe you just want to play a little bit more defense. I don't know. Something will free up because you're going to free up a 30% usage guy coming off the floor for 30 plus minutes. But if he's in, these guys don't look good at all. The highest ranked guy is 43rd for Draymond Green. If Steph plays, I doubt I have the Warriors.
Yeah. I don't think I'll have one Warrior if he plays. So.
Well, if you want to have any representation to the Warriors, you can take under 5.5 rebounds for Brandon Podziemski, 5 OddsShopper rating, but I actually probably wouldn't have any trouble taking that right now. If Steph is out, yes, Podziemski can play more minutes. He's already projected for real starter minutes, so there's not too much more left. Probably wouldn't be the best bet in the world, but I would take it on the off chance that he plays. And then we get to the Knicks. As we mentioned, Cat, questionable, personal reasons. No ownership coming into the Knicks. They're all single digits. Do you like any Knicks if everybody's in?
No, I don't. I think they're pretty similar to Golden State. This will I shouldn't say completely no. I think $90 to $100 Cat at basically no ownership would be a bit interesting.
Yeah.
He's dealt with a little bit of foul trouble recently, but I think he would stand out as an okay contrarian play. Brunson at 8,800, assuming Cat's in, I think is a bit overpriced. Hart, OG, both feel priced right. So I think Cat would be playable for me in tournaments, but things would get a lot more interesting if Karl-Anthony Towns gets ruled out. I know he's been dealing with a bit of that knee injury. Again, it's personal reasons why he's on the injury report, and I couldn't really find anything definitive on Cat if he's going to play or not.
Couldn't figure it out either. I looked around, didn't see anything. Is your assumption basically that Precious just takes Cat's minutes and that's it? Because he's been out of the rotation now. So I'm guessing he just plays 32, 34, and you bump up usage for the rest of these guys, but I don't think it makes anything really look all that interesting.
Yeah, I think Precious would get a bulk of those minutes because I don't really know how much Mitchell Robinson can play. He's played 12 and 13 minutes in his first 2 games back. Obviously, there's no Huck Porty too. So I think you would get those two kind of splitting the center minutes with Precious getting majority of the minutes. If that is the case, I think a 5K Precious would stand out as a pretty solid play there in the mid-range. Be interesting to see what the ownership is on him. And then Brunson would be someone that I would look to as well. With Cat off the court this year, Jalen Brunson has a 34% usage rate and 34.5% assist percentage. He is 1.32 fantasy point per minute player on the year. So Brunson at 8,800 would be a pretty solid spend up if Cat gets rolled out. And then I think Josh Hart would be playable as well. Rebounding numbers go up a bit for Josh Hart, obviously with Cat off the court. So I think he would be playable there too.
Yeah, everybody gets a little bit of a bump. Obviously, Brunson will look a little bit better. Hart's at 9% ownership now. That probably gets into that 15 range. Precious will be a decent value. He's down to 5K. If you give him, let's just say 30 minutes at 0.85 fantasy points per minute, We're talking about Precious as like a 5.1x his salary guy, maybe a little bit higher if you give him a couple extra minutes at that point. So he'll be a functional value option. I think Brunson and Hart would be the next two guys to look at. But there's just really not that much here for the New York Knicks. And there's no OddsShopper bets either. So kind of bleak. I did get something right, though. Shout out to Braxton Key. He's on a two-way with the Golden State Warriors now that there's one free.
Good to know.
I don't know who Braxton Key is, but he's definitely a basketball player.
I think he played in the Pistons, I want to say, a couple of years ago. I think. Maybe not. I could be wrong. I recognize the name slightly.
I didn't recognize the person, that's for sure. He was on the Sixers for 2 games and the Pistons for 12 over 2 years. Okay. And then he was on the Nuggets last year for 20 games. He averaged 3 minutes a game. So not a lot. That's 60 total minutes. Anything else for the Knicks?
No, let's move on.
All righty, folks. Now is the time. I saw somebody asking earlier. We could do it here. You want to know how much it is to sign up at Stokastic or Portfolio EV? It can be $0 if you want it to be. Link in the description or in chat. If you sign up through one of our partners, either a pick'em site or a sportsbook, could be Sleeper, could be Underdog, could be DraftKings or FanDuel sportsbooks, could be Chalkboard, which we recently added. Follow the instructions on this page. They're going to give you a deposit bonus or bonus bets or something. Follow the instructions at the top. Send us an email. Let us know what you want. You are going to get a month of a Sims core package for free. You are going to get Portfolio EV or OddsShopper for free, depending on which one you want to pick. And the best part of all of this, it's not just once. You see that laundry list of different sites you could sign up for on the screen? You could stack them. You can grab 3 of those deals, get 3 months of Stokastic. You can grab 3 more of those deals, grab 3 months of Portfolio EV. You can get in the door and pay us nothing for months if that's how you want to do it, if you've never signed up at those sites before. So click the link, sign up, and come on in because you don't have to pay us anything. It's totally free if you want to sign up and get a free month of anything at OddsShopper or Stokastic.com. It's an amazing deal. Take advantage of it. Game number 5. This is the number 1 game of the slate. Most owned game. Most owned team. Cleveland Cavaliers. They're 13-point favorites in Chicago. 242 total. Evan Mobley sitting this one out for rest. We're getting, call it 15% ownership to Donovan Mitchell. 15% ownership to Darius Garland. 15% ownership to Max Strus. 20 to Ty Jerome. And 40 to Jared Allen. Let's start with Jared Allen. I think he looks great. He's 6,200, gets a minutes bump anytime Evan Mobley isn't starting and Allen is. We don't even have him projected for all that many minutes because Chicago stinks. But he's 40% owned and he's in 65% of my lineups.
Yeah, he's got to get to here for Cleveland for sure. With Evan Mobley off the court this year, he averages 18.6 rebounds per 100 possessions, 1.25 fantasy point per minute player with Mobley off the court. As you said, in a competitive game, he should get a minutes bump here as well. So he's pretty clearly mispriced at 6,200. He looks amazing. Ty Jerome is actually next in line for ownership, coming in around 20%. It feels a little bit high to me with both Garland and Mitchell in. You know, I would feel a bit better about the minutes for Jerome if like one of the guards are out, but it's Mobley that's out. So I don't really know how many minutes we can expect from Jerome. Like, I don't think what last game he had like a huge game, I want to say. He ended up closing, 36 minutes. Obviously, you can't expect anywhere close to that. So, you know, Jerome's been playing really, really well of late, but I feel like right now he's going a little bit over-owned. The 2 main guards here in Garland and Mitchell, both hovering in that like 15% ownership range. Garland a little bit cheaper, I think a little bit easier to get to. So Garland's a 1.33 fantasy point per minute player with Mobley off the court. Mitchell 1.31. Bit of a larger sample size there for Garland. So of the two, I think it's a little bit easier to get to Garland, but obviously we know the ceiling is very high in Donovan Mitchell, and it's a great spot against the Bulls. So both those guys look decent. I'm a little bit surprised that DeAndre Hunter is getting like no ownership right now. He's 5,300. He started last game for Donovan Mitchell Dealt with a little bit of foul trouble, still played 32 minutes. Now the game did go to overtime, but still, I think he's going a little bit overlooked here at 5,300. So I kind of like Hunter as contrarian value. Strus coming in around 10% is fine, but factoring in ownership, I think I would give the edge there to DeAndre Hunter. So yeah, overall, this is a great team to get to. Fantastic matchup against the Bulls, and you're taking out one of the main players here in Evan Mobley.
Yeah. So I love Allen. He's in 65% of my stuff. I don't have much else to add. Just one of the best plays. I completely share your sentiment on Ty Jerome. I don't get it. I hope he's 20% owned. I'll barely have him. I got to 5%. I don't think he looks good at all at 5,100 here. You need a very specific run out for this to look good. I do prefer Garland to Mitchell, so we're on the same page there. And I think it's crazy that DeAndre Hunter is only 4% owned. I think he could play 30 plus minutes today pretty easily. He is a guy that I'm going to prioritize getting to when I finally build my lineups. If he maintains that ownership, I figure I'm 3 or 4xing him. To me, he's way too cheap for this scenario.
Yeah, I think we're in complete agreement here.
I really do think you and I are in lockstep for this one, which makes me feel good. Do we have any Cavs bets? Not a single recommended bet on the Cleveland Cavaliers right now. Okay, that's fine. I'll just get all of it in DFS. That works for me. Now, the Bulls, this is going to be the late swap spot. Yep. So Lonzo's questionable. Josh Giddey's questionable. Vooch is out. Patrick Williams is out. Kevin Huerter's questionable. EJ Liddell and Emmanuel Miller are both available, which I think probably tells you a little bit about what those Q tags look like. I doubt they'd be. So is Jameer Young, whoever the hell that is. If those three guys are going to be available, somebody's going to be out here for Chicago, and maybe more than one somebody. Call it 10 to 15% ownership on everybody. Giddey, White, Collins, Buzelis, Ball, Huerter, Jalen Smith. Do you have a particular guy you're looking at right now more than others? Because I've got 2 of them.
Okay, well, assuming everyone is in right now, I like a 4K Jalen Smith. So I was pretty tilted that first game back. He only played 13 minutes total. He played like a 4-minute first half stint. Was very tilting. He's had a lot of money in his props, and that did not go well. Second game, though, he played 18 minutes. So that was a little bit better to see. We know Jalen Smith's a pretty good point per minute player, 4K price point. I think he stands out as a good value. Obviously, he's only center eligible, so there's a bit of higher opportunity costs. But I like him as a value option here. Let's see. Lonzo, if he plays, I think is a pretty good option here at 4,700. In that last game, most recent game, he played over 30 minutes. I think that game went to overtime, but still good to see him play over 30 minutes. At least we know he can do it. But I would say right now, my lean is that you're not going to see these questionable players play. So the quote from Casey Johnson yesterday was, Lonzo Ball was a partial participant in practice. Kevin Huerter sat out. He can shoot and jump and up and down, but feels some soreness when he cuts laterally. So like, I kind of lean that both those guys won't play. And I kind of lean that Giddey won't play too, because as you mentioned, they called up 3 G League guys. That's usually an indication of kind of what's going to happen. We saw it with the Rockets yesterday, them calling up multiple G League guys, and they kind of punted the game. So I kind of lean that all 3 of the questionable players sit here for Chicago.
I think you're probably right. I'm leaning towards 2 of 3. Not that I have a great confidence. It just feels like a more realistic scenario where somebody gets in here. I got 50% of Lonzo right now. I think he looks awesome. He's definitely the guy that I like the most here. We have him ranked 11th coming out of the boom bust tool. Alperen Şengün, Amin Thompson, Dylan Brooks, all available to play for Houston today. The other guy that I have is Matas Buzelis, 4,700 power forward only. And if I'm getting him right now, I assume that I'm going to be getting him no matter what happens today, because I'm getting him with everybody in. Every one of those guys that drop off is only going to make Buzelis look even better. So I'm very happy to get there. I'm also more than 2xing Kevin Huerter, so I hope he's in shooting guard small forward eligible 4,300. I don't think he will be. 6K Zach Collins is a little scary to me, 10% owned, but I think that's reasonable ownership. But, there's downside. I think Jalen Smith is very reasonable at 4K as a backup, could easily pick up minutes if anything goes wrong for Collins. Don't mind at all getting to Giddey or White. But let's hypothesize here. Let's say we do lose some of these dudes. What's the path? I'm assuming $3,900 Trey Jones becomes very popular if we start losing, let's say, two of these three. I don't even think it really matters which two. They're all sort of like similar sized guys. They
Yeah.
all kind of, I mean, Lonzo and Giddey are going to be more of the ball handling variety, but I would expect bigger minutes out of Trey Jones at that point. What do you think is going to pop if we lose some of these guys?
Yeah, so I think the first guy that I look to would be Trey Jones. Last game with the Bulls, relatively shorthanded. You saw Dalen Terry start the first half. You actually saw Trey Jones start the second half. In the second half, Trey Jones played 16 and a half minutes. Really good to see. Also in that game, he was basically right there with Josh Giddey as far as potential assists go. He had 12 potential assists to Giddey's 13. Obviously, if Giddey doesn't play, I would assume Trey Jones is going to do a lot of the ball handling. So $3,900 for Trey Jones right now, getting no ownership. But yeah, he would be the guy that I think I would look to first as far as like these value options if all these guys or multiple of these guys sit. And then I would say, again, he would be the first one to look to. It's kind of tough with like Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips. I think those guys would be playable. THT, we know he's not a great real life player, but he's decent point per minute when he gets minutes. He played about 15 minutes last game. He could be potentially playable at 3,300. So yeah, Jones would definitely be the first guy to look to, but then I think you'd still have to have some edges in some of those other guys that I mentioned.
If it's all three of them, I think THD becomes a real problem. 3,300 shooting guard, small forward, did get 15 minutes yesterday with no, or not yesterday, but 2 days ago with no ball, no herder. In this scenario, if they're all out, that's no ball, no herder, no Giddey as well. If he gets north of 20 minutes at that price tag as a fantasy point per minute guy, he is going to pop as a really important value play today. So that sucks. I hate rostering that dude. But Trey Jones would likely be the first guy up. Does any of this, how much of any of this matters to you for Kobe White?
I mean, I think it would definitely make Kobe White the ceiling go up at 6,600. Obviously, there's if Giddey's out too, so, maybe the game's a little bit more likely to blow out. But yeah, I mean, he would be the go-to guy here with shooting guard, small forward eligibility. So I think the ceiling would definitely go up on Kobe White. Would definitely have some interest in him if even the game stays competitive. And then you already mentioned Buzelis, but one note for him, it hasn't happened every time, but he's a guy that has been starting and he's closed a few blowouts as well. So like if the game does get out of hand here, he's a candidate to also close in a blowout. Not a guarantee, but wanted to mention that there too. So yeah, this is one of the more interesting teams on the slate with three questionable players. We definitely could have a lot of value. And yeah, it's gonna be a fun late swap slate here with the Bulls.
8 o'clock start, which means around 7:30, Greg and I will be breaking down all of this news on playback. That's why you watch the show, folks. You need to know who to get to because we were screaming it from the rooftops yesterday that you needed as much Cam Whitmore as you could possibly get to. And boy, oh boy, could that have ever been more correct than it was yesterday. So yeah, that's one spot that's going to matter for 8 o'clock games. The second spot is right now. The Philadelphia 76ers, 2-touchdown underdogs in Minnesota, taking on the Wolves. These guys suck just like they sucked yesterday. Justin Edwards, questionable. Paul George, questionable. Quentin Grimes, questionable. Tyrese Maxey, already out. Kelly Oubre, probable for today. 10% ownership to Grimes, 10 to Paul George, 20 to yesterday's first half hero, Andre Drummond. Let's start with Drummond. 5K, center only. I don't really care the result of those Q tags. I don't think. He's 20% owned right now. He's in 65% of my lineups. I'm going to need this guy to do it again.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you of like the questionable players. I don't really think it's going to affect Drummond here too much. 5K definitely feels a bit underpriced. Obviously, he had a huge game last game. I don't think we can expect that. Plus, again, as you mentioned, pretty big underdogs, but still stands out as a pretty good point per dollar option. Definitely one of the better center plays, in my opinion, on the slate. So, yeah, I think he looks good no matter what. Whoever plays for Philly, Drummond's going to look like a good option.
Now, obviously, let's go through if they play.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on Paul George and or Quentin Grimes if they're both in?
It's tough because I like the upside on them if they do play. Quentin Grimes, the ball handling's been really solid for him recently. Paul George, obviously, if he plays, going to have the ball in his hands a ton. Like the ceiling on those guys is high if they can keep it competitive. So, like if they do play, Yeah, I think they're solid tournament plays, both hovering around 10%, because Philly would most likely run a pretty tight rotation, and yeah, those two plus like Oubre would be leading the way usage wise. So, like if they're in, I do have interest in both of those guys, in Paul George and in Grimes.
Does the Q tech? I mean, like Justin Edwards is 4K at this point. He's such a bad per minute guy. You're going to need Grimes and George out if you're ever even getting shares of him. I doubt he ever looks great. If we lose everybody,
Mm-hmm.
what does that do to Kelly Oubre, who's currently unowned, 6,400, shooting guard, small forward eligible?
Yeah, well, Oubre, the ceiling would be extremely high in him because he'd be the top option. I believe they would have what? So if Paul George, Grimes, and Edwards all sat, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I believe they would only have 8 guys in that scenario.
Let me take
If
a
if
look
all
here.
those guys sit, and honestly, like I kind of lean that they're all going to sit because, like, Philadelphia, they have nothing to play for at this point. No reason to push a guy like Paul George. They said that, Justin Edwards was day to day with his injury. Didn't really get an update there on Grimes on how significant that injury is. But if that happens, as you said, then we have like all the value in the world. Oubre obviously becomes the go-to guy. Doughton has been playing ahead of Jared Butler. So it'll be interesting to see who starts at point there with those two. You have Lonnie Walker on this team, who I think would be like a good value. Ricky Council probably chuck. So this would be a situation where we would have a lot of value for Philadelphia if you get that scenario where all these guys sit.
We also have to deal, depending on how these Q tags break, with Jeff Doughton versus Jared Butler. Whether if Doughton starts, it's kind of gross, and then you're trying to like figure out what you want to do. If Butler starts, he's going to be incredibly popular. He's like
Yeah.
4/10 of a fantasy point per minute better than Jeff Doughton. So paying attention to that starting lineup potentially could be crazy. We got a lot to wait on for Philly, but 8 o'clock start. Make sure you're watching playback. That's the takeaway for all of this. Greg and I will be breaking down all this news when it comes in. We still have some other question marks here for Minnesota. In particular, we have a Q tag on Julius Randle today. And Julius Randle is 30% owned right now, 6,500. Criminally broken price tag. Power forward center eligible. Played 34 minutes in his return. If he's in, he looks awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I was shocked how many minutes he played too. He's on pace for like 36 minutes last game. First game back, like over a month out, and he just comes out and plays mid 30s minutes. That really surprised me. Now this is a back-to-back for Minnesota, so he's gonna play. He's not gonna play both ends, I don't think. So he's gonna play one or the other. It's a home game today, so kind of lean that he plays today. We'll see. But if he's in, yeah, $6,500 for Randall looks like a really good option in the mid-range. If he's out, then like a guy like Naz Reid at 7,800, the ceiling would go up on him. The rebound chances for Naz Reid have been really solid of late. He's also just playing like huge minutes, like competitive games. Naz Reid is pushing like 40 minutes. So he would be someone that would look better if Randall doesn't play. Obviously, Ant would look a little bit better, and then he could maybe start looking at some of these value options as well. Guys like Terrence Shannon potentially. But yeah, if Randall plays, I still think you can like look to Nas and Anthony Edwards as tournament options, both around 10%. I don't really think I'd be messing with the value though for Minnesota if Randall does play.
Yeah, I don't have much that I'd want to get here other than, shares of Edwards or Reed are fine. If Randall is out, I'm not even sure it like creates anything amazing. Like clearly I'm still good to get to Edwards or Reed, but then we're talking about Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon, and neither one of those guys are particularly great per minute dudes. Nickeil Alexander-Walker then probably plays a bunch more minutes. DiVincenzo probably grabs a couple others, but I don't think it ends up being incredible for Minnesota if Randall's out. I'd rather him just be in because 6,500 just looks insane.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Karl Anthony Towns out for today.
Okay. So yeah, should get a lot of run there for Chua.
Yeah, as much as he could probably handle, because I don't get the sense they're going to be stretching out Mitchell Robinson all that much. We have a 23 OddsShopper rating on under 9.5 rebounds on Naz Reid right now. Clearly a scary one to take if Randall doesn't play, but 23 is so high that I might even just take my chances, given how good that looks. We've got it at -131. It's sitting at -110 on BetMGM. Final game of the DraftKings slate. The Brooklyn Nets, 3.5 point dogs in San Antonio, 229 total. Hit that like button if you haven't done it yet, guys. 2,000 people in the door, 219 likes. We need 181 to get to 400. So can 180 of you guys that haven't done it yet, please hit that thumbs up. There's no ownership coming into Brooklyn. Everybody is single digits on the DraftKings side. 9% to Claxton is the most. For some reason, I have 30% of D'Angelo Russell at 5,400 right now, which doesn't make me feel great, but there's no Victor Wembanyama on the opposite side, so it's not like the San Antonio defense is any good. I'm willing to take a flyer on D'Angelo Russell, who I guess is fine today, but I really don't think Brooklyn looks good.
Yeah, agree. They're one of my least favorite teams to get to. I think they're going to run a 10-man rotation here. D'Lo, I mean, they could ease him back in a little bit. I mean, outside chances to even bring him off the bench. I think it's in the range of outcomes. So there's really just not much here. Claxton, 5,700, getting the most ownership. His minutes haven't been amazing. I know there's been a couple blowouts, but Day'Ron Sharp will still play decent minutes off the bench. Can't get to him either, 5,300. Cam Thomas, I would be pretty surprised if he plays north of 25 minutes, so can't go to him yet. And yeah, like there's really just nothing here for Brooklyn. So they're basically a cross off for me.
Yep, we are on the exact same page, other than D'Angelo Russell was 11% optimal, 20% boom in our boom bust tool. So I'm not surprised to be getting to him. I think he's a hair under owned. I have very little trust in his minutes, his everything for this team at this point. Mitchell Robinson will remain on a minutes limit today, which we expect.
Yeah, so Robinson probably plays like around 15 minutes to be my guess.
10 to 15% ownership coming into De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell, Chris Paul, and Keldon Johnson. Stephon Castle available. He was questionable earlier today. What stands out here? Because I kind of like De'Aaron Fox at 8,200. I kind of like him more than the other point guards we've talked about.
Yeah, I like the ceiling on Fox. We haven't really seen a big game from him recently. But we know we've seen a couple of 50 fantasy point games from Fox here without Wemby. 8,200 is a reasonable price point. So totally fine getting to him. Stephon Castle, 6,100, has been playing like out of his mind recently. The minutes have ticked up too. I don't love the price point on him, but he's currently basically getting no ownership. So I think he's in play for GPPs. The minutes have been pretty good on Keldon Johnson at 4,600. I like him for value. Vassell and Chris Paul, I'm kind of indifferent on. The minutes haven't been great on Biyombo. I still think he starts, but I do think like a 1% owned Jeremy Sohan is a little bit interesting as a contrarian option as well. He's basically playing the backup five right now for San Antonio. He's played 30 and 24 minutes over the last couple of games. So he's a little bit interesting if they do try to go a bit smaller here. So yeah, definitely like the San Antonio side better than I do the Brooklyn side.
Same. I got 2x the field on Fox. I'm a bit over on Devin Vassell, neutral on Chris Paul. I like the Jeremy Sohan shout out. I was hoping to get to a little bit more Keldon Johnson today if Castle ended up out, but now the Castle's in. Keldon Johnson's 13% owned. I don't love it as much, but we do have him at 11% optimal. So that is out there if anybody is looking to get to the Spurs. And I mean, it's like an okay matchup, but Brooklyn is just a place to go where like everything looks worse. 9 OddsShopper rating, under 10.5 points on Jeremy Sohan on BetMGM right now. So either take him as a flyer play in DFS or bet against him on BetMGM. We got 2 to go. Neither one of these games are on the DraftKings slate. This is FanDuel specific. Clippers, Suns. Clippers are 3-point favorites in Phoenix, 224 total. Tons of ownership coming to the Clippers on the FanDuel side. 30% to Harden, 30% to Kawhi, 30% to Bogdan Bogdanovic, 15 more for Zoo and for Chris Dunn, because no Derek Jones, no Norm Powell, no Ben Simmons. I think what you want to do here is get as much of the Clippers as you can against this crappy Suns team.
Yeah, Clippers look great here. Starting with Bogdanovic on the FanDuel side, 4,600 looks like a really good price point for him. He started the second half last game for Norman Powell. He played 17 second half minutes. He really has not shot well since coming to the Clippers, but the usage has been decent. And again, he'll be kind of like a secondary playmaker there behind James Harden. So Bogdanovic looks great. With no Ben Simmons, you're going to get a bit more ball handling for James Harden. Potential assists were decent for him last game. I believe it was 21 potential assists, I want to say. So 9,200 for Harden looks pretty good. $8,100 for Kawhi Leonard. Minutes have been, in the mid-30s. I'm good with that. Chris Dunn has dealt some foul trouble, but he's played well. I expect him to push for high 20s minutes here. 5,200 is a reasonable price point. Like the spot a lot here for Vicha Zubats at 7.7K. So those main 5 guys, I think, all look really good. Expect the Clippers to run a pretty tight rotation. I don't think I'd get to like the bench guys like Coffee, Eubanks, Batum, maybe see a little bit of Jordan Miller, but what I think will be the starting five of Harden, Bogdanovic, Kawhi, Dunn, Zubac, I think all those guys look really good.
Yeah, they're one of the best teams, if not the best team that you can get to on the FanDuel side. That's what happens when you get to play this garbage Phoenix team. Bradley Beal, questionable. Otherwise, it's the same Suns we always get. The most owned guy for the Suns right now is 6% owned Bradley Beal, 2% to Booker, 1% to Durant. Whatever you think of the Clippers, it's the opposite for the Suns. I need nothing here.
Yeah, not much for the Suns. Looking at the price points here on FanDuel, Beal, if he plays, I think would probably be the preferred option there at 6,900. Minutes have been very, very good for him since he moved into that starting lineup. If he gets ruled out, then I think you're probably looking at like Tyus Jones, the value option, 4,700. He would move into the starting lineup. I said, in the two games without Beal recently, potential assists have been amazing there for Tyus Jones. So he would be a potential value. And then, KD and Booker would look a little bit better, but 9,200, 9,300 are not like amazing price points. The prices come up on Ball, past there, and I don't think I'm going to mess with either Richards or Plumlee.
The final game, it's the New Orleans Pelicans, 8-point dogs in LA, taking on the Lakers. There is zero ownership coming into the Pels. Brandon Boston available. It's the same Pelicans lineup we always get. 2% ownership is the most we got to Zion, Yves Missi, and Kelly Olynyk. I don't need anything from the Pels here, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's just a price point thing here. Like, again, playmaking role for Zion has been great last couple of games. He's 9,500. Olynyk and Missi both feel priced right. Like Murphy feels a little overpriced. CJ a bit overpriced. His team is, basically fully healthy from what they've been. So, not much here at all for the Pels.
Lakers are slightly different though. Steph Curry hopeful to play thanks to Steve Kerr. So fucking no information whatsoever. Luka in, LeBron in, no Austin Reeves, no Rui, no Jordan Goodwin. 15% ownership to Gabe Vincent, 15% ownership to Luka, looks awesome. 30 to LeBron, 20 to Dorian Finney-Smith, 20 to Jackson Hayes. And if you guys find it interesting, Sleeper's got a free square on LeBron today. Take advantage, guys. If you're playing on Sleeper, grab the LeBron James free square on Sleeper. If you don't play on Sleeper and you want to, sign up through our link at Sleeper, use the free square, and get a month free of Stokastic's DFS tools or OddsShopper if you're looking for it. Very easy way to do it. You can see it on the screen right now. Give me all of the Lakers. They're kind of these LA teams on FanDuel tonight, man. Give me them both.
Yeah, no, Lakers look really good here. No Austin Reeves. Both LeBron and Luka are good spend ups. I think LeBron a little bit easier to get to a 10K than Luka, but still 11.2K Luka firmly in play. The minutes have been really good for Dorian Finney-Smith without Rui here, 31 and 37 minutes. He's a fair value play. Gabe Vincent should start once again. He started for Reeves last game. Not a great point per minute player, but he is viable at 4,200. Minutes went up a bit there for Vanderbilt and connect with how shorthanded the Lakers are. I think connects, in play for tournaments. We've seen some decent games for him. He had a decent game last game. Minutes, you're not going to feel like as secure about with him as some other of these value options in the Lakers, but still, if he's getting a shot going, they could extend him a bit. So overall, Lakers look a really good team. And then, as you mentioned, Clippers also look great too. So yeah, a lot to like here for LA.
Absolutely. Shout out to Luka Doncic. I don't know what he's doing to his voodoo doll, but it's not going great in Dallas, that's for sure. Oof, sorry, pour one out for Kyrie. DK, tell the people where to find you.
Yeah, you guys can find me over on Twitter. That's going to be DK__DFS, doing DFS and prop content.
There it is, everybody. 9 up, 9 down. Live before lock coming up next on this stream. You don't got to go anywhere. And then make sure you're watching playback.tv/Stokastic because Greg and I are going to have a ton of news to break down over that hour. Good luck, everybody. We'll see you later. Live before lock is next.
Hall of Fame, and all you got to do to get involved, get the bronze, silver, gold, platinum tier, or one of those beautiful custom rings to commemorate your big win in the spinning display case. Just go to stokastic.com/HOF, download one of those beautiful avatars, use it wherever it is you play. When you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, no matter the entry fee, just tweet your wins to Stokastic HOF over there on Twitter, and you're in. Let's get it started. We got 3 Ring of Honors, starting it off with Tyler, and he had a 100K monster win thanks to the great tool strategy and a Timberwolves 25-point comeback win. Tyler Scanlon, 100K in the NBA fadeaway. Next up, Nyrod 914, Bang Bang Choo Choo Train. The playback show with Greg and Josh was pure gold. 50K for Rod HYH 614. There's another 100. Then we got a 50K. We got a 20K as well with Aaron. Just started using Stokastic a few days ago. Already earned myself a Ring of Honor. Thank you. There it is. 150 and 20. We got a gold tier too. Ben P. What's up, Ben? 2 days in a row with second place finishes. Third time in 4 days I'm tagging Stokastic Hall of Fame, but this time I took first ×2. Ben's been up here a lot. Adam Gant at Stokastic Hall of Fame. Man, a few words, but $2,500 win. First place in the mini-max to enter the silver tier. Then we got Corey Hansen in the silver. First Hall of Fame in 2025, but he did it twice. Second place last night in the fadeaway and piggy bank on FanDuel. Stokastic tools come through again. 2 screenshots there for Corey to get in the silver. Martin in silver. Stokastic does it again. They have the best tools for success in the industry. $400. Third place in the end one. Goldhouse. The info the guys at Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock provide, and with Stokastic tools definitely made this possible. First place in the quarter jukebox. And Alex, second place in FanDuel's piggy bank using the Sims. Third place in FanDuel's piggy bank again using the Sims. You gotta love it. Bang bang from bronze to silver just that quick. And then you got Lord Marikai, second place, $7,500 over there on FanDuel in a little showdown action. Chad Freeland, first place. What is that? My Kitten Hurts. $6,000. First place in the 4-point play. Janet took down the Hot Rod 25K contest.
Hello, Lamb. I love Lamb.
What is happening, everybody? It is time for, I guess this is just what we do the rest of the season, Infinity News to break down constantly. We just got a fresh projections update for Karl-Anthony Towns being ruled out due to a personal matter. So we'll be looking at the Knicks updated projections in just a moment here. As per usual, any lineups that Eric and I have built prior to the start of the show, before Karl-Anthony Towns is out in our projections, all worthless. So we're going to have to rerun everything for that. Do us favors, you're watching this. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Last night, we had a really fun time over in Playback. It was actually the most viewers that we've ever had in one Playback show. So we are going to be doing something a little special to celebrate that later in Playback. So you guys are going to want to check out that show for multiple reasons other than something fun that we have planned. There is just so many players on the injury report today, Eric. We've got Julius Randle. I'm just going to list. These are all questionable. Julius Randle, Steph Curry, Josh Giddey, Paul George, Kyle Kuzma, Bradley Beal, Quentin Grimes, Lonzo Ball, Kevin Huerter, Cole Anthony. All these guys are questionable. Then plus, who knows what some of the starting lineups for these teams are going to be like at this point in the season. So check out Playback after we're done over here. Eric, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm okay. Yesterday should have been the absolute Hulk slam of all Hulk slams. I know a lot of people got burned by the Jaren Jackson Jr. flat out zero. A zero. Getting injured before you even put up a fantasy point is about as bad as it gets, but still had a pretty good run at the $3, finished top 10, and overall felt really good about the reads, about the lineups, but most specifically felt great about our projections. Our projections and the Sims tool have just been doing absolute mad work. Good to see a lot of people. I saw Sean Geezy up there in the $5. Just wish some of those big lineups that I had in the 3 had a chance in the 5, but yeah, we continue on today.
Yeah, and as far as Steph Curry goes, because I see Dan brought it up in the Playback chat, he said, you think Curry plays today? Yeah, I tend to think Curry's going to play. Karl-Anthony Towns also earlier when I was doing a Portfolio EV show with Lofty, somebody in chat said, for sure, Curry and Cat both have to be playing considering it's a primetime game. And the Cat one's a little bit different. We don't know exactly what the scenario is, but it's a personal matter, which kind of supersedes whatever, basketball obligations there are. I do tend to think Steph Curry is going to play. Steve Kerr said that Steph is hopeful to play, which is really a bullshit kind of comment because, what does that mean? But more often than not, when coaches say a player is hopeful to play, it tends to mean they actually do end up playing. But obviously, whenever players are hurt, they are hopeful to end up playing. So I do think that the most likely scenario is that Steph Curry is going to be playing for tonight's game. We've also got a couple of super chats here sitting for us. First, we've got one from Saif Din Super. He is asking us, Eric, on the night slate, I have 7 Lakers in my lineup. Is that too much? Yeah, probably. I can't
probably
remember
a little
time that
much.
I'd want to play 7 in a lineup.
Yep, that's a lot.
And then Swag Baby 69. It's great that we have to read off people's YouTube handles. Sometimes, as Eric has done in the past, incorrectly or
I've
or
never
correctly,
done
depending
such
on
a
your
thing, sir. How dare you? Kicker of K,
we have to
son
do?
of a biscuit.
Jordan, every once in a while, I think we have to play old clips on the show because I know you have them all saved. Because the one that we're referencing right now, it really should be played on the show every once in a while. It really should be. You're not even going to disagree with it because it's hilarious. But anyway,
I would like to kick you in the K hunt, actually, at this moment in time. You mean human being. That is not very nice.
Do you have that handy right now to play, Jordan?
No, he does not. No.
Okay.
And
All
honestly,
right.
honestly, let's filter it out a little bit here. Because without context, I sound just like a crazy person. And Greg's voice goes into the shadow realm. What?
Because
it's literally
hilarious.
what I remember the most.
It was fantastic. I'm sure a lot of chat knows what we're referencing as well. Swag Baby 69. This is not a question. This is just a shout out to us as he took down the mini max last night. Thanks for all the info and the tools. Yeah, shout out Swag Baby 69. If you guys want to sign up for any of the tools we have on the site, link down below in the YouTube description box. If you want to sign up directly for any of the packages, you can go through one of those links. But then also don't forget about our link join offer. If you guys do want to take advantage of signing up for any of our affiliate partners through that link, for each one you sign up for, 1 free month of core access on top of that as well. A couple of things. We've added a couple new partners, Fanatics, as well as Chalkboard. They are now on the list of options to choose from. And today, if you're looking for value stacked up on top of value, Sleeper is a free square. LeBron James over 0.5 points. So here's what you can get if you sign up at Sleeper, Eric. 0.5 over points on LeBron James. Feel pretty damn good about that. You get a deposit bonus offer from Sleeper and 1 free month of NBA core access, which, I mean, even just that 1 month, that's going to take you through like the beginning of April, which the season ends the second week in April. So you just sign up for Sleeper, you're getting a lot of value. And then on top of it, you're getting core NBA access for the majority of the rest of the NBA regular season. Shout out as well, Guitar Z-Man 247. He gifted out 10 YouTube memberships. So Guitar Z-Man, thank you very much for supporting the channel. As per always, we appreciate that. Easiest way to support the channel is to simply like the video, subscribe to the channel, or subscribe to any of our packages down below. Eric, let's start here with our basketball talk by looking at the New York Knicks updated projections, because we do now have Karl-Anthony Towns out of the mix. So Jordan, if you could be so kind, pull up the projections for the Knicks. And right away, no real massive surprises. The thing I'm most interested in is what happens in the front court for the Knicks, because we do have Mitchell Robinson active. He's going to be playing limited minutes. I really want to see what it is we have him projected for. We have him for 18. But what's really notable about the Mitchell Robinson being included in this is if we got a Precious Achiuwa start, especially because if you think we saw Hukporti start the last time the Knicks were sans Karl-Anthony Towns, but he's injured now at this point. If Mitchell Robinson wasn't in the mix, I think Precious Achiuwa would look really, really good. He still looks solid right now, Eric. But what are you going to do with Precious Achiuwa when you consider that Mitchell Robinson is in the mix now for the Knicks? Achiuwa project for 28 fantasy points in 29.5 minutes.
I mean, you got to think, I mean, Mitchell Robinson is Tibbs' boy too. I mean, this is just such a disgusting situation. I got to think that you still need to play some Precious Achiuwa in your life in some capacity. Because, like, if Mitchell Robinson is really limited, which is very live, they've been insanely cautious with him already, 12 and 13 minutes. I don't think we can see a lot more. I think you got to be playing some, plus the opportunity for them to be sharing the floor together. Bridges minutes, what's going on with Mikal Bridges minutes here? 33 and 28 the last two, and kind of weird spots overall. Like, I think there's a lot of ways where Precious Achiuwa at 5K walks into a pretty decent role. It's hard to overlook that he's good points per dollar at the moment, but depending on what else shows up here while we're on this show, I mean, yeah, he's definitely an option that we're going to be considering.
Yeah, I have to think we get decent minutes out of Precious Achiuwa. It's a little bit capped because of Mitchell Robinson being in the mix, but there's also a cap to Mitchell Robinson's minutes, like a literal one, because he is coming back from what was the surgery at it? Was it ankle surgery? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, do you remember how well he was playing at the beginning of last year? Like,
He was awesome. He was awesome. And he's only played in a couple games this year now.
Yeah, too. And it's just been an ankle for a while, so I'm assuming it was an ankle that he had surgery on. But I think Mitchell Robinson is a very good real life basketball player. I think it is very hard to imagine more than 14 minutes under, like maybe you get 16, and at 4K, I probably don't care on this specific slate with how many centers we have to rotate again in that mid range between Jared Allen, Andre Drummond coming off of yesterday, everything of that nature. Like, it just really comes down to Precious Achiuwa with the power forward eligibility. What we think about that? Oh, Josh Giddey, that's gonna be fun. Lonzo Ball, where did this come from?
We got Bulls news. Josh Giddey, he's out. So are we about to get weird shit that's gonna come out?
All of it, all three of them. No, they were all questionable, but I'm just saying that it's just like, I thought we would get one of them in, and now I'm mad that I didn't jam Kobe White and Buzelis because I looked at their props all day. Getting all three of them ruled out surprises me a little bit.
Let's see. We've got for the Bulls. Yeah, here it is. Kevin Huerter officially out. To what Eric had said, Josh Giddey out, Lonzo Ball out, Kobe White, he will play today, which the Kobe White one, I mean, he was listed as probable, so we were fully expecting him to play. Yeah. But I agree with you, too, to where obviously I thought there was a chance the Bulls guys would get ruled. I didn't think all of them would get ruled out. I didn't think that we would get the news this early either, considering that game doesn't start until 8 p.m. Eastern time. Maybe a little bit of a punt game by Chicago where they're looking at the matchup against Cleveland, 13-point underdogs, and just saying, hey, we're not going to win this game anyway. We don't care if we win the game. Why not just hold out some guys, which also something that's happening a lot more at this point in the season. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have some Bulls value to talk about. I do want to finish making sure that we wrap up the talk on Karl-Anthony Towns being out in the New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson, to me, one of the top overall point guard plays on the slate, Eric. And then as well, Josh Hart looks really strong, but Jalen Brunson's the player I assume I'm going to get the most of from the Knicks.
Yeah, probably for me too. Anytime Cat's out, you just see the assist rate goes up a tiny bit. The usage goes up a lot a bit. It's going to be good times.
All right, so let's talk about the Chicago Bulls because they are going to be extremely short-handed now. How many guys do they even have active? Let's see.
Fucking nobody. All I know is that it is Trey Jones season. Welcome to the absolute chalk of all chalk. I just ran everything as fast as I could with Trey Jones. He is my highest owned player by a landslide. 3,900. This is going to be funny.
All right, so we have for the Bulls, Kobe White, Zach Collins, Buzelis, Jalen Smith, Trey Jones, Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, and then some NPCs. Emmanuel Miller, Javon Carter is available, THC. All right, so they actually do have 12 active bodies, but a lot of them are, it's like Emmanuel Miller, Jameer Young, EJ Liddell. Like, these are guys who we are not going to be anticipating playing big minutes. So pretty concentrated, at least viable NBA players that are available for the Bulls. My initial reaction here, Eric, is going to be, I know that Kobe White's had a really odd season in terms of usage. I think this is the spot for him to be taking more shots. If this game's a blowout, he's not going to be playing in garbage time, but I have to assume more usage goes to Kobe White. And then on the cheap end, you had already mentioned Trey Jones looking like a top value option. And Buzelis in the mid-range also looks really good. Anything that you would add to that or any other opinions on this Bulls situation?
Yeah, they're all in play. Absolutely everybody. They're massive dogs too, but do you really care about the minutes for any of these dudes? I'm curious what you think the minutes could it potentially be for like a Jalen Smith here too. Does he get the blowout run? I think based on the last couple box scores, Zach Collins probably doesn't play in the blowout runs here anymore. And it's maybe Jalen Smith coming down to the end of it, and 4K for him. It's probably going to look a lot better, but those punts, like, the center position, I mean, we're definitely going to see an improvement for Zach Collins, but Buzelis is going to look incredible. Kevin Huerter being out is going to push anybody coming off the bench into like consideration. And then the biggie for me is just Trey Jones starting. Trey Jones is going to be the most popular play on the slate, I would think.
Cole Anthony was just ruled out for the Orlando Magic. And then, of course, we also found out earlier that Jalen Suggs is going to be out for the season. He was already going to be out for today, but we got another team here in the Orlando Magic. They're going to be shorthanded in the backcourt. Once again, shout out to the data team who are going to have their hands full. This is a near impossible task at this point in the season, and they've been killing it. I mean, like last night, you and I were texting a little bit about it, Eric, where I had 75% of Triple J. I doubled my money across all my contests yesterday. A lot of it has to do with the late swapping to the Rockets players. That was a big part of it. Playing SGA when he was lower owned, that was definitely a part of it. But then, of course, just the late swap tools and all the work that the data team has been doing to keep up on all this news. So I want to make sure I shout out those guys because Jason and Rich, they have their hands full down the tail stretch of the season. Anything else you want to add about the Chicago Bulls before we bounce over to the Orlando Magic?
Starting five. Who do you think starts for Ball and Giddey right out of the gate?
All right. So Trey Jones for sure.
Yep. He's the best play out of the entire team for me.
All right. So we know pretty confident. I know 4 starters, right?
Correct.
Trey Jones, Kobe White, Booz Ellis, Zach Collins. Now the question is going to be who is the 5th starter? And man, this is where it could really get nonsensical for the Bulls.
Yep.
Have they started Dalen Terry at all this year?
That would be my pick.
Yeah, he started last game. Dalen Terry.
I think Dalen Terry ends up being the guy. I'm just trying to piece together how many guys it gets till we run into THT conversations, because THT is 3,300 and the best fantasy producer out of all of them. Traditionally been out of rotations, but he played 15 minutes last game. I'm just saying, I think we're probably one short of really actually playing THT and being serious about it, but like late season NBA, THT is going to be a thing at some point, and perhaps we are thin enough where we got to at least consider him off the bench.
I'll see what if our projections are really high on THT.
No, they won't be crazy high.
Then I'll agree with you. If not, there's just going to be so much value on the slate that I don't think I have to dive that deep. He's, you look at, they were shorthanded last game. He played 15 minutes. A lot of it came in garbage time. He has played over 20 minutes once in 2025. He's been a DNP coach's decision about as many times as he's actually been in the rotation. So I don't think I'm going to be getting to THT, but if we have a projection that's higher than I anticipate for him or any of these other ancillary pieces for the Bulls, then I'll definitely have to reconsider that. And I'm sure that projection update is going to be coming in a couple minutes for us to circle back to. But while we're waiting for that, let's go to the Orlando Magic, Eric, where Cole Anthony is out, and he's had to play a pretty decent role for the Orlando Magic. Early on the season, he was out of the rotation. And here we go. What the hell is this starting lineup?
3K Corey Joseph. Thought they might do it. It's weird that they're doing it, but they played both of them right around the same amount of minutes. Was it 14 for Anthony Black last game? Corey Joseph played 10.
It was all at the end of the game. He was not in the rotation. He played 10 minutes. It was the final 10 minutes of the game. So if anybody watched that Orlando-Toronto game, what happened was Toronto was more or less winning a blowout. It was like a 20-point game for the entirety of the contest. And then at the end of the game, Orlando kind of is starting to punt. They take some of their starters out. They put some bench guys in, Corey Joseph being one of them, and they just go on a crazy run. So if I remember correctly, I think Toronto was up 16 or something with 2 minutes left. And Orlando comes all the way back. The score is 104-100. Paulo Banchero hits a layup with 4 seconds left. Orlando steals the inbound pass. Franz Wagner gets a wide open layup with nobody around him at the buzzer. He doinks it. They end up losing the game by 2 after coming all the way back. So Corey Joseph plays 10 minutes. It was kind of hard to know what that meant because it was like pseudo them giving up on the game at that point. Boy, Corey Joseph sucks at this point in his career. He is starting, though. I thought they were going to start Anthony Black.
I did too, and then we wouldn't have to think about it
because I thought they were going to go.
Yeah, me too, because he's 4,200. So we wouldn't have to think about, like, he's not a good fantasy producer. We probably wouldn't have played any Anthony Black first game right out of the gate. 3K Corey Joseph. Oh, does he have revenge in his heart against his former team? We shall find out. But all I know is he's a flat 3K starting. You put him in for if you put him in for anything over 20 minutes, he's going to be in play. So he's not a great fantasy performer. He's not good at this stage of his career, but they obviously want to keep things intact with Anthony Black coming off the bench. He'll probably play more minutes still, but he was never really going to be a huge consideration for me at 4,200. Curious to see what ends up happening when it's all said and done. I doubt there's a ton. I guess the big thing that improves, you got to expect more usage even for Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero. Sure. Not like we need any excuse to get to them against Toronto at 8K and 8,200, but like they're going to look even better.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good looking plays in like that upper mid range. Jalen Brunson being one of them. Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero are a couple of other ones. Banchero has really struggled as of late. He started the season off pretty well, had the injury. He's just been massively inefficient. He's never been a good shooter, but he's just been really inefficient over the stretch of the last month and a half or so. But it's a good matchup. The usage is going to be there for him. The total is crazy low in this game. It's 207.5. For reference, the second lowest total on the slate, it's 221.5 in the Minnesota Philly game. So this game has got a total about 15 points lower than any other games. That's a little bit of a concern, but for sure, Paulo Banchero, Franz Wagner, guys to be getting to. Do you have a preference between the two?
Not today, not really. I mean, they were like almost in lockstep in my first run of the Sims. Obviously, things have changed so much since that run. Cat out, Cole Anthony out, Chicago, all three of those guards out. So things are going to look very different. My guess is now we get ourselves a point guard piece of value in Trey Jones that I'm probably going to be jamming. I'm looking at like positionality, small forward, power forward, like where are the most popular plays? Like Bazelis is really going to look good because I think even in a blowout, you still get a little extra Bazelis. He's so good sub 5K with two of those guys out. I think power forward probably gets eaten up a little bit more, where I could see Banchero maybe slightly being lower than Franz Wagner, but just kind of like thinking through ways like you look at the small forward position, I guess Josh Hart somewhat in play, even though that's disturbing to say out loud, 7,700. Like small forward just doesn't look all that good. I think Franz Wagner just easy plug and play 8,100. I think in cash small forward, it's kind of an interesting one with Josh Hart there as well. I mean, OG Anunoby, like these are all guys that you're going to want to consider for cash. I think Franz Wagner, though, probably at the top of my list now.
Let's see what we have for super chats. And on Corey Joseph, if he's in a couple lineups, cool. Just with the amount of players that are on the injury report, though, and with this being the first locking game on the slate, I don't want to have too many lineup spots taken up by Corey Joseph. Very similar to yesterday, where we had the Philadelphia 76ers, and I didn't want to go crazy playing like Tyrese Maxey or Quentin Grimes, just because there was an assumption we were going to get better options that were going to open up later on the day. And then once you had other guys as well that were going to be better cheap options, it was going to be easier to get up to SGA. So I kind of feel the same about somebody like Corey Joseph. Maybe he looks okay right now. He's not going to project all that well, but there's going to be better value plays. I feel pretty confident in saying that as we get more news here. Let's see what we have. Mustang Man Mike wants to know who are the 5 must plays. There's a lot. I don't know if there are 5 must plays for a FanDuel. All right, so FanDuel Cash. He wants to know who are the guys that we're going to consider must plays for FanDuel Cash. He wants 5 of them, Eric.
Oh my God. So we should probably talk about the one thing that we haven't yet on this entire slate, and in cash. You should just be thanking the heavenly stars that all of those guys on the Chicago side are out, because I think Trey Jones now becomes like a lock. I think you've got all of this news on the Philly-Minnesota game that we're waiting for. Randall on the Minnesota side, Philly with Grimes and Paul George still sitting with Q tags. I think that news is just so gigantic and as far as like what you do in cash, but I still think you probably go towards all these Knicks pieces somehow, some way. So starting with Precious, he's definitely in. Trey Jones is definitely in. I think Josh Hart is close, but like not guaranteed. James Harden, because there's no Norman Powell 9,200 for the FanDuel specific slate. I think both him and Kawhi in some capacity are really strong considerations. I'm playing tournaments, so I'm not playing cash. I'm just kind of like thinking through the builds. I think James Harden probably a really strong cash consideration. So I threw 3 out there. I'll go Harden on the expensive end, cheapies Trey Jones, and Precious Achiuwa. I'll let you round out the last 2.
Yeah, Precious Achiuwa at $4,400. He looks, like we said before, he looks pretty good on DraftKings, but on FanDuel at $4,400 with power forward and center eligibility, like I just don't see how you get away from Precious Achiuwa over on FanDuel, especially in cash games. We're going to project for 77% ownership. He's not going to be quite that popular in GPPs. He might be in cash games, though. LeBron as a pay-up option. I don't think you would set him, correct?
No, I did. And yeah, that was the other biggie. I was just honestly doing that off the top of my head, having built some lineups over there before the show. But yeah, LeBron is, I think, like the first or second most popular play on the slate. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so LeBron is a pay up option. Definitely agree with you on Precious Achiuwa. Definitely agree on Trey Jones. We've got, because he's $9,400 and not all that popular on FanDuel, Jalen Brunson. I prefer him on DraftKings to FanDuel. Let's see. Bogdan Bogdanovic, another guy that I think you should absolutely be playing in FanDuel cash. And yeah, I think we've listed off 5 there. So those are the ones that we're going to call must plays for now in cash. And then who knows what else ends up opening up over the course of the upcoming time here. Choke Holden wants to know, can we go light on the first 2 games?
Yes,
all right, so first 2 games on the slate, Toronto, Orlando, and Houston, Indiana. Yeah, I don't have an issue with not going super heavy with anybody in those first 2 games. Like I'm not going to go out of my way to avoid Boncaro and Franz Wagner, but I doubt I'm going to be playing like 50% of them or anything like that. Talked about not loving Corey Joseph as a cheap option. Houston's getting a lot of their guys back after they were out yesterday. Then the Pacers, kind of a difficult spot for them against Houston. Some individual guys look good, but not like terrific or anything like that. There's nobody I look at from the first couple games on the slate and say, like, that's a must play.
Yeah. I mean, Andrew Nembhard is probably the guy at the guard position. So we talked about Franz Wagner, Paulo Banchero. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Andrew Nembhard's been playing some of the backup point guard duty with no TJ McConnell, but TJ McConnell's back. And I think that kind of changes the way that I look at him on the slate. He's a pretty avoidable piece of chalk now. You do have Bennett Mathurin out, so there's still going to be Ben Shepherd. There's going to be, minutes made way for a number of the ancillary pieces. But with TJ McConnell back, I think you definitely are going to see Nembhard have less ball handling duties, both in the starting unit and when he's playing in the second unit. He's been playing a boatload of minutes. He's sub 5K, but it's Houston. It's the first game of the slate. I think he's the other guy that is on the fringe of being somebody I would be playing a lot of. But as it stands right now, I think you're okay fading the first 2 games, but don't want to do it. I'm going to play a little Orlando, a little those Houston Indy pieces.
We got Brajal Patel left a super chat here. He is 3 claps for Rich and the team who does the projections and shit in the background. I like that
you had us in the first half, not gonna lie.
That shit they do in the background. It's valuable work here.
Meatloaf.
Demean it by calling it shit in the background.
I was gonna say you just completely shit on him in the second half of the
he meant it as a compliment, but it certainly
I know
doesn't
he did.
read as one. And then he also says, great call on SGA in Houston last night. Profitable night, could have been even better if not for some injuries. And then he says, Kyrie there. Yeah, I mean, not to continue to pile on, because I think I've done it a pretty good amount to the Dallas Mavericks, but boy, do they fuck up their current and future of their team with that Luka Doncic trade. And yeah, surely you trade Luka, who was the league leader in minutes played last year, because you have durability concerns about him. And instead you build around Kyrie and Anthony Davis, who I don't know why people just, or at least the Mavericks, are like, surely Kyrie and Anthony Davis, these are the 2 most reliable, durable stars there are in the league. Certainly sucks that Kyrie is going to be out for this season and probably a large chunk of next season as well. But what were the odds of Kyrie and Anthony Davis staying healthy? I'd looked this up earlier. Kyrie hasn't played in more than 60 games since 2018, Eric. So the idea that he was going to be healthy when he had to handle a bigger workload, it was near impossible.
That's not ideal. It's not ideal.
All right. We got a projections update. If you wouldn't mind, Jordan, could you refresh this page and go to the Chicago Bulls? And don't forget, guys, projections as well as Discord come with access to all of the packages that we have here at Stokastic. If you want to sign up for the light package, you can get that. It comes with projections, ownership, single lineup sim, access to Discord. So you can get that. If you want the core package, which also comes with the sims, you can get that when you sign up with any of our partners through the affiliate page down low. Let's also throw that into the YouTube chat if you wouldn't mind as well, Jordan, the link to sign up through the link join page. But Chicago Bulls, here's what we're looking at now, Eric. So we have for the Bulls, and then I have to rerun Sims as well for the slate after we look at this. Now this is updated. Kobe White, we've got in for 32.5 minutes. That has him for 35.76 fantasy points. Buzelis, 28.64 fantasy points at 4,700. Trey Jones in for 30, right around 30 minutes. puts him at 28.24 fantasy points at 3,900. You'd pointed out before, by far the best value play on the slate. And then minutes kind of spread out for some of the other guys. So also, I'll get Eric's take on the Bulls in a second, but can you go to the projected starting lineups page, Jordan? I'm just really curious who it is that we've projected as the 5th starter.
I think it was Dalen Terry. I looked at it a second ago and then went out of the page. We had it exactly the way that we talked about, so that was good.
All right.
We had Dalen
even
Terry.
with him projected as a starter, we only gave him 24 and a half minutes. He only played 18 and a half minutes in his last start, so I think that's pretty reasonable.
Yep.
By the way, THT, Eric, we gave him 18 minutes. That puts him at for 19 fantasy points.
Yep.
Not great, but at least maybe a guy who might show up in a lineup or two.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Could be. What else stands out to you about the Bulls? There are a shit ton of guys who are like min price projected for around 20 fantasy points.
Yeah, I think it was pretty clear cut. Anybody who knows what they're doing, Trey Jones was going to look like the best play on the slate, and he does. So that is exactly what it is. Again, it was nice to get everything updated here so quickly. Bazelis is obviously the next guy in line, has the power forward eligibility, talked about how that's going to affect some of the ownership of these early games. I do think Franz Wagner is going to pull a little bit more ownership now as a result, and just kind of how the way the lineups go. You have Giannis Antetokounmpo, 11K, as more value gets added, which we already have with Trey Jones. We may also get with the nuke of the night and, another potential spot to be high on. Again, obviously, once you got Cam Whitmore starting, every share of Chalk Landale I had turned to 100% Cam Whitmore. So it ended up working out in the end. And Reed Shepherd, the other guy, that 30% was really, really nice. There's something similar brewing with Philly today. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to work out the same way. I was pretty convinced Houston was going to sit those guys against OKC, especially with my guy DK DFS on the previous show. He was pretty against Houston potentially playing those guys. Did it result in Oklahoma City covering 10? No, it did not, but felt really good about those reads. I think we've got something similar here with Philly. With all the Chicago value now, too, you should have the lineup positionality to be able to change things over pretty darn easily based on that news.
Considering what you just said there, are there any players who are currently listed as questionable that you are very confident aren't going to end up playing today?
I'm not crazy confident. I mean, do you feel crazy confident about Quentin Grimes one way or the other?
I just assume Philly sits everybody at this point. This team is it's just trash, especially relative to expectations. And they've dealt with so many injuries. Also, they are so incentivized to lose at this point. Just so the 76ers, considering the contracts they've given to Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid, the only way for them to improve their team is going to be via the draft. And they only get their first round pick this year if it's a top 6 pick. Like, it is imperative to the future of their team that they end up getting a top 6 pick. So if anybody is like, on the fence about playing, I just think it's more reasonable to assume that they sit than play. There's so much more incentive for them to lose than win.
I would agree with that. So with that, I think it's now, 21 minutes? We can let things kind of settle here for a second. Nuke of the night?
Do it. Play the animation, Jordan. All right, Eric. I don't know which way you're going to go to. I was so confident in my guesses about your nuke of the night yesterday.
Yes.
And
it's genius.
I even in hindsight, I think I was right. I think I knew your nuke of the night yesterday better than you did.
Well, I mean, I ended up with no Jock Landale and 100%. That was the one caveat I threw out. Yeah, you needed to have both Steven Adams didn't even play, but I needed to have both of the centers out. And you needed to have a world where Cam Whitmore wasn't starting, because flat 3K Cam Whitmore was a free square. I don't think it's very different today if you get Jared Butler starting here for the Philadelphia 76ers. It's a guy that we routinely see here in the rotation, in these spot start type situations. He is such a good fantasy producer when he gets there. We saw it in Washington. We have seen it so far here in his brief tenure in Philly. He only played 5 minutes. I think a lot of other people also look at Lonnie Walker, who got signed. Ricky Council is somebody at a flat 3K who I think kind of enters the conversation as well. Now, Kelly Oubre is playing. I think if you get Quentin Grimes playing, it's kind of boxed out from some of those shots. You have Edwards, who I do think ends up sitting as well, considering he turned his ankle in the game. I'm surprised he even ended up questionable in the injury report. But there is nothing stopping Jared Butler from potentially jumping in there. And in the event that somehow, some way it ends up being Jeff Doughton, which he played the 19 minutes, I totally get it. You can pivot. You can find the 100. We're going to have so many Chicago pieces. This got so much easier to deal with. But if he starts, Jared Butler, 3,100, nuke of the night.
All right. Eric going with Jared Butler, which I don't have any issues with him being a guy to get to. Boy, let me see. Which direction do I want to go here? In the middle of updating my lineups. Lots of directions to go. All right, so here's somebody who isn't pulling quite as much ownership, but actually is projected as one of the better points per dollar plays on the entire slate. And then I also think stands to play in blowout run. Jalen Smith. Jalen Smith, only 4K. We've got him projected for well over 20 fantasy points, actually mid-20s fantasy points, even though we only have him projected for 19 minutes. In a scenario where the Bulls get blown out by the Cavs, which considering who's available for the Bulls today, and the Cavs have got their, all their core guys healthy today, definitely one of the more likely scenarios for the game. A somewhat low-owned Jalen Smith as a good fantasy producer. I like him as somebody to be overweight to the field too, Eric. He's projected as one of the top points per dollar plays on the slate for us today. I'm going to go with Jalen Smith. And then because of his position, not really pulling all that much ownership.
Love it. I definitely think Jalen Smith is one of those guys that, we could be looking at some insane blowout run here. This is a huge spread. It just got even more difficult to imagine a scenario where Chicago is competitive in this game. Does make me kind of interested in taking some shots on the THT path, because 16 minutes of blowout run for THT, it's insane to say, but not completely out of the question. And, you're going to be getting some interesting ownership on him. I could see it going one way or the other. Obviously, I don't think he starts. I think we all have Dalen Terry in there. It would be insane to see THT start, but he can definitely get things done on a basketball floor. And so for him at 3,300, somebody I've got my eye on, I might want to combine him with some with some Jalen Smith in some lineups and just hope that those two go together. Not something I think about stacking all that often, but I'll probably avoid other Bulls. Maybe I'll get to some Bazelis and not worry about it too much, because I think he's more apt to play a little bit later. But I like the idea of THT going along with some Jalen Smith lineups.
We got a super chat here from Brajal asking us to tell JB to shut up. I don't know what JB had said. What did JB say that's got everybody all riled
I don't want to play hall monitor today. Come on now. Let's just be respectful. Don't be a bitch.
I can't even find the comments of what he said. So hard to know what it was. But Brajal, JB says that you should shut up. I'll be the moderator who delivers.
I want to ban EMAC for putting unavoidable. Am I right in the chat? Can we ban EMAC? Ban EMAC 2028?
No. That's our president. You can't go ahead and do that.
What are we even doing here, EMAC?
Next super chat, Einstein wants to know: do we have any interest in Trae Young and Dyson Daniels tonight, Eric? Any interest in Trae Young? Not Trey Jones. We've got a question. Trae Young and Dyson Daniels.
Oh, I screwed up the Trey Jones bet. I wanted the Trey Jones bet again. But anyway, I have a little bit of interest. I can't imagine I'm going to get to very much of either of them, but Dyson Daniels gets 48 steals per game. That seems good for fantasy, although not a lot of ceiling performances. Trae Young's up to 10K against Milwaukee. Yeah, I doubt I get to a lot of either of them.
I've got 12% of Dyson Daniels right now, and I have Trae Young in 1% of lineup. So Trae Young, no, there's other pay up options I prefer, especially at the guard position. Dyson Daniels, as a last man in at his price point, all right, fine, but definitely not somebody I'm going to be prioritizing or building around for the slate. By the way, I have my lineups updated, and the player I'm currently most overweight to the field to, at least relative to what their ownership is, because there's definitely players I have more exposure to, but Jalen Smith did end up being the guy that I'm most overweight to in my last update that I ran here. Chris Albers wants to know, who are the must plays tonight for DraftKings? Sure. Must plays for DraftKings. I'm going to say Trey Jones, Buzelis, and Giannis as a pay up option.
People think I look like a snitch. I don't look like a snitch. I look like a good-natured. No, I don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Snitches get stitches. I ain't about that life.
Trouble here.
No, I go down with the ship, son. I go down with the ship, son. Shit.
I don't know. Not what you look. I'm not saying you wouldn't. I'm just saying that's not what you look like. You look like you would panic and spill the beans.
I wouldn't. I've never panicked in my entire life. Everybody watching this show knows that.
Not true at all. You're a panicky Pete. Absolute panic. Anybody else you would add as a must play?
Eric lives in his grandma's basement. This would be a nice fucking basement, don't you think? I trying to think. DK. Let's take one more look here. One more gander. Jared Allen, Precious Achua, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, Okongwu. Those are a lot of my must plays. A lot of the guys that I'm getting to the most. And obviously everybody that we had mentioned earlier. Trey Jones, pretty important.
Show is absolutely flying by. We've only got 13 minutes left to go here. I want to remind you guys that if you haven't checked out Portfolio EV, you can get a free trial. Jordan's going to throw that link into the YouTube chat. There's also a link down below in the YouTube description box. Absolutely, totally free trial to Portfolio EV. Great way to test out the tools, simplify your betting process, build that bankroll. We've seen a ton of huge winning screenshots come to us on tour. All you have to do, go to here. If you want to get an idea for what some of the results are for people, just go check out the OddsShopper Hall of Fame Twitter account and just look at some of the posts that people have sent to us about all the success they've had using the tools. Join them. If you don't, you're leaving some money on the table. So go check out Portfolio EV, 7-day free trial. It is available to all new customers. We want to be able to get you guys trying out the product. That's how confident we are in it. Let's see the next super chat we have here. It is from D-Buff. Daniel Buffington wants to know, favorite shooting guard on DraftKings. Eric, who's your favorite shooting guard on DraftKings?
Just sad. I didn't know that I looked like a snitch my entire life. I'm just...
Yeah. Do you not have mirrors at your house?
No, I keep them away.
Okay.
It's not very nice either. Kobe White.
All right. What shooting guard do I have the most exposure to now that I've got stuff updated? So the shooting guard that I currently have the most... Boy, shooting guard sucks today.
It's not great, Bob. It's not great.
Yeah, kind of Kobe White by default for me. And I mean, I think he looks, reasonably good with all the guys out for Cleveland. It's not like he looks phenomenal or anything like that. It's just, it's a shit position. There's not a single player at shooting guard project for more than 20% ownership.
Nor should there be.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll agree with you. I'll go Kobe White.
Kind of makes it interesting to boost some of those Sixers, right?
As well, but I don't know how much exposure I want to him in the first game of the slate.
Kind of makes it interesting to get to some of those Sixers, like a Ricky Council, or, obviously there's no opportunity cost at shooting guard today.
I mean, there could be if better value opens up later. Like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Lonnie Walker
locking guys in on the first game of the slate,
right? Lonnie Walker. Just saying. I guess there's no small forward, power forward for Ricky Council. I thought he had shooting guard, small forward for some reason, but.
Let's see the next super chat. It is coming to us from RADM. Hey, with the Bulls casualties, who do you think will get more assists other than White? Trey Jones.
Yep.
I thought you were going to say who.
Nope, I'm still sad.
Anybody else on the Bulls?
Anybody else on the Bulls that's a absolute priority?
No. To get assists.
Trey Jones, THT has a outside chance of it. Javon Carter, I assume, walks into some backup point guard role, but mostly Trey Jones and Kobe White.
Yeah, that's how I see it as well. And then he wants to know any of these you think will be more likely to play garbage time. As far as guards go, to me, the garbage time play from the Bulls, it's Jalen Smith.
Agreed. And THD.
1-2 wants to know who's the Nico Harrison WTF play of the night. I don't want to do anything that Nico Harrison would be doing.
Yeah, honestly, if we do that, Greg and I are going to tear our ACLs getting off the show. So let's not do that.
Yeah. So who's the absolute worst play on the entire slate? I assume the Nico Harrison play is just who is the worst play overall of the day. Let's see, relative to ownership.
I'm going to go with.
There's nobody who's like outside of Trey Jones, nobody's insanely popular. I'll say this. If you're loading up on the early games, it's the exact same thing that we said a million times. Now, there are so many marginal plays in the first couple of games in the slate. Don't go too crazy on the first couple of games. There's going to be better plays that open up later. That's the overall what the fuck play. Something that's short-sighted that Nico Harrison would do is be like, oh boy, these first couple games, I want to load up on them in my lineups.
Yeah, if Aaron Nesmith at 4,500 puts up another 37 fantasy points, Yamo be there. Yamo kill myself. He'll be very bad. I love that. What was that? The movie that's from 40-Year-Old Virgin, also known as Greg's autobiography.
I am absolutely not 40. That's the issue I take there. I am not 40.
That was a good one right off the bat. Right off the cuff. That was beautiful.
June Sosa 21 says Eric is not a snitch and gives out good DFS content like Cam Whitmore. There we go. June Sosa. He's got your back.
Oh, man, my burner works.
Let's read some of these questions in Discord now to close us out. If you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, join Josh and Over and Playback. This is going to be another day where we are just going to get, I assume, an onslaught of news. We're going to be reacting to it and telling you guys how to react to it while Josh and I are on the show. Yesterday, someone took down the main contest on FanDuel, tweeted us. He attributed that win to the Playback show. So come join us on Playback. Plus, like I said before, we're going to have some of the special plan for Playback for the people who have been watching and supporting that show all year. Coach DFS, top DK plays in a GPP, percentage cap for them. Yeah, so there's one player I have way more exposure to than anybody else. That's Trey Jones. I have Trey Jones in 97% of lineups. That's the guy I have the most of. Other players that I'm currently getting the most. Are you even more than that, I assume, on Trey Jones?
100.
Yeah, I've got 97%. It's a lot, but it didn't quite make it to 100. Close to it, though. Other guys who are currently the top plays, let's go by position. At point guard, it's very easily Trey Jones.
By a mile favorite tournament play, Jalen Brunson.
Okay. Shooting guard, that is, I'll stick with Kobe White. Shooting guard, once again, is just, I don't have more than 20% of anybody at shooting guard.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the answer becomes Lonnie Walker.
At small forward, that is currently Josh Hart for me.
It is THT for me.
At power forward, that's Buzelis.
That is Buzelis.
And then
no. I have Giannis. I have 100% Giannis.
Oh, okay. Giannis is for me at center, and then as a more contrarian play, Jalen Smith, projected for 15% ownership.
Yeah. I love Okongwu, but Giannis is still the guy. So there's that.
We've got, hey, I'm Drew, wants to know who are the must plays for DraftKings cash. Yeah, now that we've got the dust settling pre-lock at least, Trey Jones. As of now, Jared Allen, certainly subject to change based on other news that might come out. Giannis, Buzelis. Yeah, I'd call those the cash game locks.
Sound good.
Sniffs 1, 2, 3, 4 wants to know, how are we making sure that we get some of the late plays like Butler? Yeah, my lineups are just not very front loaded, and I've got a lot of exposure to the Bulls already. It just, if we see guys get ruled out for the Sixers, it's not going to be that hard for me to make swaps. Kind of the same with like the Rocket situation yesterday.
That's exactly it.
And let's see what we have. It's Jay. Cavs blow out the Bulls. Ty Jerome or Craig Porter Jr. I'd rather play Jerome than Craig Porter Jr.
I would rather do a lot of things than play Craig Porter Jr. Just about anything.
I actually have Ty Jerome in some lineups right now. I don't have Craig.
Correct. That's the way I wanted to phrase it. That.
M Grizzly, am I boosting anyone today? So not individually. I down boosted some of the players from the early games just that I don't have very much early exposure. I didn't go out of my way to up boost anybody from the later games. Just as long as I don't have early exposure today, I feel like I'm pretty good to go. Anybody that you're giving a positive ROI boost to here as we approach lock?
No, I'm not. Other than the guys that I talked about, the Philly side, kind of similar to yesterday. I'm just trying to have a devil of a time. I played a couple lineups in that 1-1-1 on DK, and I'm trying to decide if I want to roll out Banchero, Wagner, and if so, how much. That's the main question.
Yeah, I've got like 25% of each of them. I think that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I'm going to land.
They're pretty good options, but at the same time too, I don't view them as it's same as what I said at the top. I don't have like 50% of either of these guys and they take up a ton of lineup spots, but like 25 to 30% of them, like I think that's a reasonable amount of Banchero, Franz Wagner, and I slightly prefer Banchero.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm probably going to just be hitting eject on the whole thing in my one big lineup. I'm probably, yeah, it is what it is. Just going to fade the first two games in that and just kind of hopefully all this Philly stuff comes to fruition.
Wade says it's Wade. All right, I put that.
Hello.
I put that together. It's Wade. Can you tell Eric to get on Marvel Rivals? Eric, get on Marvel Rivals per Wade. He wants you to know that. Dorian Ogans wants to know Buzelis or Drummond. If this is just a flex spot and the
Drummond
salary doesn't matter or anything, Drummond over Buzelis. I have more exposure to Buzelis, but that's because of positionality and pricing. If that's not a concern there, then Andre Drummond. 34 midway monster. Would we skip the first game? Not skip it. I just don't want to have like an insane amount of exposure to the early games.
I'm not playing it in my big lineup.
8724. Can we go to Lonnie Walker if Paul George is out? Absolutely.
Yes, you may.
Brought up as well.
Thank you for asking.
Yep. Jaw 1224. What are we doing with Wagner and Banchero? Yeah, kind of talked about them already, so don't need to hit on that again. The process. Who is popping the most for the Knicks now? Let's see. Who do I have the most of from the Knicks? Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson pretty comparably for me.
Correct.
And then Precious Achiuwa. It depends what site you're asking for. On FanDuel, it's very clearly Precious Achiuwa. For DraftKings, for me, it's Josh Hart, it's Jalen Brunson, and then Precious Achiuwa. So it depends what site you're asking for.
Yes.
Like Precious Achiuwa at 4,400 is the best play on FanDuel.
Correct.
One of the best plays. How much Jared Allen do I have? I have Jared Allen in 36% of lineups at the moment. Eric?
Sounds about right.
You high on Jared Allen?
I have him in, I believe, 25%.
All right. Yeah, so I've got, like I said, 36% of Jared Allen at the moment. But once again, injury news. Still stuff that could end up changing things in the post-lock show. We have 4 injuries here as we close us out. Steph Curry, Julius Randle, Paul George, Bradley Beal, Quentin Grimes, all of them are still questionable. A lot of that is news that we're going to be getting in the next hour when Josh and I are over on playback. Also, the FanDuel slate includes the final 2 games on the slate. The DraftKings slate is going to have the final game at 8:30. So we're going to have just about every single game on, and the 8:30 game doesn't have injury news we're waiting on. So just about all of the news that we're anticipating that's relevant to the DraftKings slate, it's all going to be covered on the playback show. Come join Josh and I. Jordan, if you wouldn't mind, throw that link into the YouTube chat so people could easily click on it and then get directed over to playback for people who want to know. That's the easy way. You just click on that link. You come join Josh and I. There's an app you could download for playback as well. You turn on notifications so you know whenever we go live. But click on that link. Come join us over in playback. Other than that, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's time to do some late swaps. That's actually a hilarious close.
What the hell? Oh!